said, "You're late, young man." And I thought, oh, my career has ended before it begins. And I said, "I'm sorry, sir. I stopped to help somebody on the freeway."
He said, "You're late, young man." And I thought, ooh, my career has ended before it begins. And I said, "I'm sorry, sir. I stopped to help somebody on the freeway." For decades, Clint Walker seemed like the perfect cowboy hero from Cheyenne. But his daughter, Valerie, has finally broken her silence about what really happened behind closed doors. She's revealed the dark truth about his drinking, the blackouts, and the nights he disappeared for days. There were hospital stays the public never knew about. Close calls that almost ended everything. Valerie lived through the fear of not knowing if her father would come home alive. What she's sharing now explains why Hollywood tried so hard to keep these secrets buried. He was born Norman Eugene Walker on May 30th, 1927 in Hartford, Illinois. His mother, Gladys, was a Czech immigrant who had split from her husband just 8 months into the marriage. She gave birth to twins, Clint and Lucy, in a small town already crushed by the Great Depression. The broken home made everything harder. Gladys moved from place to place just to find work. And Clint learned early that life didn't wait for you to grow up. His Cherokee roots gave him pride, but they didn't pay the bills. By age 10, he left school and started working wherever he could. From loud, greasy factories to tough shifts on Mississippi riverboats. He was tall and getting stronger fast. By 16, he had already worked as a factory hand, a boatman, a carnival laborer, and even a golf caddy. The muscles came from hard labor, not a gym. He was 6 feet 6 inches by the time he was old enough to shave. At 17, near the end of World War II in late 1944, he joined the United States Merchant Marine. The war was still raging. U-boats stalked supply ships across the Atlantic, but Clint signed up anyway. He didn't see direct combat, but he sailed dangerous convoys through enemy zones and stormy oceans, watched the war end in 1945, and came home with a new sense of who he was. It didn't make things easier, it just made him tougher. After he left the service in 1946, he moved to Brownwood, Texas, and took a brutal job in a foundry welding aircraft parts. The heat burned his skin, and the hours were endless. But he kept going. The pay was tiny, just pennies. But he saved what he could. His hands were covered in scars from the sparks. He didn't complain. He just worked. In 1947, he headed west to Long Beach, California, chasing something better. He joined oil rig crews that handled giant steel pipes in rain and wind. The money was better, but the danger was worse. Men got crushed or burned. Clint kept quiet, showed up on time, and saved every dollar. He often skipped meals, not because he was dieting, but because rent came first. His hands got older before his face did. In 1948, he ended up in Las Vegas and got hired as a doorman at the Sands Hotel. He stood at the door, 6'6", calm as stone, towering over Sinatra and Dean Martin. The casino buzzed every night. Clint was there for the chaos, holding the line, keeping drunks from getting too close. One night, a Hollywood scout noticed him. The face, the build, the presence. They didn't ask if he could act. They just asked if he wanted a shot. By 1950, with the Korean War beginning, Clint signed back up with the Merchant Marine. He was 23, shipping supplies across dangerous waters again. His ship hit typhoons and nearly sank twice. One storm off the Korean coast almost pulled them under completely. That night changed something in him. He started thinking about what really mattered, about what came next, if he survived. When he finally came home, he was ready to leave danger behind. In 1954, talent agent Henry Wilson found him. Wilson was the same guy who discovered Rock Hudson. He liked big guys with camera-ready faces, and Clint had both. He brought Clint in for a screen test, handed him a Western script, and told him to read. Clint had never acted before. Didn't matter. His voice, his frame, his quiet strength, it worked. Wilson renamed him Clint Walker and signed him. Within days, Warner Brothers gave him a contract. In 1955, Clint moved to Los Angeles. They didn't throw him in front of a camera right away. First, they sent him to cowboy school. It wasn't for fun. He spent long hours on horseback, learning to fall, shoot, fight, survive on camera. He trained with real stuntmen, bled from real bruises, and got up every time. Hank knew how to handle heat and danger. That foundry in Texas had taught him that rig in Long Beach, that ship off Korea, all of it led here. When Cheyenne aired on September 20th, 1955, everything changed. His first episode, Mountain Fortress, showed a snowy mountain fight so real that 10 million people tuned in overnight. Clint stood alone against bandits, calm and deadly. Viewers had never seen a Western like this on TV. The hour-long format was new. The scale felt cinematic and Clint, towering, quiet, unstoppable, became the face of it. The show kept pulling from his real life. In The Northern Story in 1956, he played a scout navigating wild rivers and harsh terrain. Behind the scenes, they filmed in freezing Utah rivers. Some actors got sick. Clint didn't flinch. He'd sailed icy waters before. He did his own stunts, soaked and freezing, and the cameras caught something honest. Audiences felt it. Critics noticed, but not everyone at the studio got it right. At first, Warner Brothers thought his deep baritone voice was too much for TV. So, they dubbed him with another actor in the first 2 episodes. Fans hated it. Letters poured in. People were furious. By the 3rd episode, The Dark Rider, they switched to Clint's real voice. The difference was immediate. That voice became part Ophi's legend, and the fan reaction became one of the first cases where audience outrage changed a studio decision. In 1956, during filming of The Border Patrol, a stuntman was thrown from a horse and seriously injured. Clint refused to keep filming. He walked off the set and demanded better safety gear. Warner Brothers stalled, but he didn't budge. Eventually, the pressure worked. The show resumed, but with stricter rules. What Clint pushed for became a model. Horse stunts got safer across the industry. He didn't do it for credit. He just didn't want anyone else to get hurt. That same year, the show became part of Warner Brothers' 6 new-wheel format, rotating with other series like Maverick. Fewer episodes per season, but each one was bigger. In 1957's Duel at Sundown, Clint faced 3 gunmen in a single take. No cuts, no second tries. He pulled and fired, hit his marks, and finished the scene in under 30 seconds. Viewers went wild. After that, his pay jumped to $1,500 per episode, a huge number for that time. Over 7 seasons, Cheyenne aired 108 episodes and set records for its genre. Clint Walker had gone from a poor kid in Illinois to a war-hardened sailor to a foundry worker with burned hands to the towering face of America's western frontier. Clint Walker never needed a double to make danger look real. In The Long Rope, aired September 26, 1960. The heat was so brutal that he collapsed from exhaustion, but not before wrangling a stampede of 200 cattle by hand across the Arizona desert. No tricks, no stand-ins. Viewers could feel the sweat, see the dust, and believe every second because it wasn't faked. That single episode pushed Cheyenne into ABC's top 10 and stayed there. It wasn't just about action. It was about truth. That truth cost Walker a trip to the medic, but it made Western TV history. 2 years later, in the lead-up to the War Wagon finale, the intensity didn't let up. In 1962, Walker was filming at night through cold desert wind. There was no choreography, just raw instinct. That moment of thinking on his feet redefined what action could look like on television. Critics took notice. Audiences couldn't stop talking. That rope wasn't just cut. It was a symbol of breaking TV convention. In 1961, Clint Walker crossed over into Gunsmoke for The Man from Bod. It wasn't just a character crossover. It was 50 off real horseback riding through the New Mexico wilderness, just like the script demanded. No green screens, no shortcuts. That one commitment to authenticity turned the episode into a game share. Ratings surged for both shows. It proved that Cheyenne wasn't just riding the Western wave. It was driving it. And Clint Walker wasn't just an actor. He was a legend in motion. He brought that same intensity to the big screen. In 1958, Fort Dobbs gave Walker a $500,000 shot at movie stardom. Warner Brothers didn't believe in him. But by the end of the shoot, after doing all his own chases, stunts, and fight scenes, he made believers out of everyone. He played Gar Davis, a fugitive charging through Wyoming's rocky badlands, and earned the film over $2 million at the box office. For a Western with a modest budget, that was a triumph. And Walker had no intention of hiding behind doubles. Not with his 66 frame and real-life toughness. 1 year later in Yellowstone Kelly, he was pushed even harder. The film featured a grizzly bear attack that wasn't entirely staged. The bear was trained, but its movements weren't controlled. A specially rigged prop claw ripped open his costume and scratched Walker's arms for real. He didn't flinch. Director Gordon Douglas wanted the scene to feel like life and death. And Walker made sure it did. Even the crew started to worry, but the camera kept rolling. It wasn't acting, it was surviving. But long before all this, back in 1956, Walker stood silently in the Ten Commandments. No one noticed him in that sea of 15,000 extras except Sealby, Deal. The director spotted him during a beach workout and offered him a walk-on role as a Sardinian guard. That one moment standing next to Charlton H. changed everything. Warner Brothers saw him and moved fast. That single appearance turned into Cheyenne. That small scene became a launchpad. In 1966, Night of the Grizzly took things to another level. This wasn't a stunt double wrestling a fake bear. It was Clint Walker wrestling a 600 pounds trained one inside a freezing Idaho cabin set across 12 takes with real claw marks left behind. Every second felt dangerous because it was that night shoot that bear and those scars turned a low-budget film into a cult classic. It wasn't perfect. It was something better, real. Then in 1967, Walker signed on for the Dirty Dozen. He played a battle-hardened sergeant, but during filming in England, a grenade misfired. It singed off his eyebrows and sent panic through the crew. Filming stopped for a medical check, but Walker insisted on finishing the scene. The movie went on to make $12 million and became one of the biggest war films of the decade. But behind that box office number was a man who didn't back down even when fire exploded near his face. On May 24, 1971, Clint Walker was skiing down a steep run at Mammoth Mountain when everything went wrong. He lost control and tumbled 400 foot down the icy slope. One of his ski poles slammed into the snow tip first. And as his body hit it, the pole drove 5 in into his chest. It punctured the sac around his heart and triggered a deadly condition called cardiac tamponade, where blood pressure collapses as the heart gets squeezed from the inside. He managed to tosh out once before the world faded. His body was turning blue by the time ski patrol loaded him onto a rescue sled. They rushed him to a small hospital in Bishop, 45 miles away, where doctors couldn't find a pulse or blood pressure. He was pronounced dead. Then something strange happened. Another doctor walking past the room noticed a tiny faint movement in his chest. A breath. It was enough. They rushed him to the basement where there was no surgical theater, no anesthesia, and barely any equipment. They cut him open on the spot. For the next 2.5 hours, Dr. David Sheldon and Dr. George Brown worked by hand to remove the clotted blood and restart his heart. They weren't even sure he could be saved. He had been clinically dead for minutes, but his massive chest and rare physical strength gave him a fighting chance. They massaged the heart back to life. During that time, Clint later said he wasn't inside his body. He floated above it, watching everything from above. He saw the surgeons. He felt peaceful, alert, more alive than he'd ever felt. There was no fear, just calm. He felt like he knew things that had always been hidden. And then came a pull, not of pain, but purpose, something unfinished, something calling him back. So he returned. 8 days later, Clint Walker walked out of that hospital on his own feet. Not only was he alive, he had no brain damage. He checked in at UCLA Medical Center for 3 more days, then went home.